Welcome. Good to geek out. Geeking out with a bunch of geeks here. Was there 5 of us today? Jesus Christ, we're multiplying like rabbits.
Like fucking gremlins.
There's no water here. We stay dirty. We're dirty boys. We're gonna be covering Invincible episode 3 today. Who you calling ugly? Ed, San Antonio. Editor? I don't know. What's up, fellas?
Yeah, it was good. Big Greg, West Hills, aka Bruticus.
Hey, what's up? This is Reverse Rambo, Washington.
Yo, what's up? This is Jay from LA, California.
I like that Reverse Rambo doesn't give his real name. Like he doesn't want people to like reverse search him on Google and find out.
You can't re-image search. You can't reverse image search this. I'm too. Look at this fucking face. I'm a dime a dozen out
Is that you are the face that they use at Minority Report? What up? It's Boba Fresh, Rob, coming from San Francisco.
I was gonna call him the ghost face killer of the crew. Can't see his face. All right, so Invincible. We covered the first 2. We're here for the third one. Kind of catching up. This is the true aftermath of the end of episode 1, which is the Guardians of the Globe being massacred. And we start off at the funeral with the murderer giving the eulogy. How beautiful. What do you guys think about that open?
I mean, that's cold, but I feel like that's Omni-Man.
I feel it was cliche.
That was Viltrumite to the core right there.
So Viltrumite.
So Viltrumite or Kryptonite?
So I did notice, like, during the funeral, if you look in the background, some characters are obviously meant to look like characters. Did anyone else see One Punch Man about to sit down?
I saw him about to sit down.
That's not a comic book character. That was interesting.
No, I found
Yeah, no, my sons called them out too. Like they were watching. They're like, "Hey, that's One Punch Man." I was like, I totally missed it, but yeah, I saw.
The Omni-Man talking about the Guardians, how they're like his mentors and they welcomed him to the planet, and he's totally just dishing it up and like hamming it up for everyone, and like everyone's crying, and it's like, dude, he is really, really he's Omni-Man in terms of compartmentalizing things. I mean, men compartmentalize pretty well. His superpower might be super compartmentalizing, as we see later on in certain episodes. But this is the first time where you can you kind of see it with his wife earlier on in episode 1 and 2. This is the first time where you could tell he's 2 separate people almost sometimes.
But the other dope thing that I found in it is that it hits on that. How many times have we seen the superhero funeral? Like, how many times have we seen? Basically, it's the reverse of Mary Jane's Spider-Man wedding. You know, like it's still a who's who. It's still, you know, a spread of the Marvel's universe or whatever splash page you want to pull from. But they do a great job just like making you be like, what would it be like to be there? Like, who gets invited? You know,
Like yeah, logistically, like how do the invites go out? You know, who has the database of superhero emails?
Secret identities.
But it's usually ton of superheroes, right? Attending the funeral of this one superhero, right? This one was crazy because there's a ton of superheroes dead, with a select few being invited, right? So it's crazy.
I think it's also interesting that they brought to light that they have to have a second funeral that's secret where they actually bury the bodies because of souvenir hunters that are going to dig them up and just, you know, sell them online, I assume, and make money off their trinkets.
That I thought was smart. I thought that was smart right there.
Awesome. It's real.
Well, it's very similar to what is done in Germany. Like, no one knows where Hitler's remains are actually buried or where the bunker is where he assassinated himself, because they don't want that supremacy worship happening in this form of martyrdom and basically giving them a shrine. And so, not to compare the Guardians to Hitler, but I'm comparing them in the sense of the impact, the iconic impact that they have on a society and on the imaginations of a society.
And then also Olga is like the beginning of what's her name? Debbie's suspicions. And then, this continues as you go further along. But this is the first time where she's starting to question things and what's going on.
Yeah, the part where she asked about the person, like, do superheroes lie? And I'm like, of course
All
they
the
do.
time. Of course they do. They have to.
So of course.
But then also like what Rob talks about, the way we idolize like famous people and athletes and stuff like that. If superheroes were real in real life, like in our reality, we would worship them the same way, and we wouldn't think they lied either. You know what I mean? It's a very real question, but it's something in a comic book you don't read too often.
False idols.
Yeah.
Can I say something about this comparison? You know what I realized? I realized by watching this series and watching The Boys, it's like, I don't know if the writer, it's like they have a funny way of showing, like, is that how we would see Superman? Like how Omni-Man is and how Homelander is? Is that how we would see Superman? It's like they're all there. It's like they're trying to tell us something here.
So we're still on the first scene. Let's move past the first scene.
Well,
okay. So
does anybody blame?
I guess this is a good point where I can ask anybody who has something to say about Dark Blood. Right now is a great point because that he's on the scene, he's investigating, he's so much better than Hellboy, but he's supposed to be Hellboy, right?
No, Ed, can I say it?
No, he's supposed to be Damien Darkblood.
Constantine.
Yep, that's what I got. Constantine.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, I mean, I don't think that there's supposed to be a direct correlation.
Yeah. Right.
Making us feel these things from all over. But I think what's the most important part about him is that he represents within the history of comics, because this is obviously entirely a reference to the history of comics, is that he's the pulp comics, like he's the detective comics. He's the actual transition from mini novels to Dick Tracy to where we are now. And they end up doing a great job pulling all of these like old school like concepts and just kind of cobbling together the weird different parts of the world. Like there's a hell in this world. Like there's a very real hell in this world. Like what does that make you do about God?
And then we get to Robot and the tryouts. Monster Girl, who's gonna bring her up first?
Oh my god!
I thought that character was really well done. I thought I think the that there's a detriment, that there's a price she pays for her fucking powers, and that she says it's hard to keep relationship. I'm 26, I thought that was just a really interesting dynamic to that character. It makes me like the other ones, it makes you a little bit more interested in them. Like I was more interested in Red Rush before they turned them into Red Mist, and then same thing with Monster Girl. Like I like the whole, there's a price to pay for her powers, and she has to be how do I say it? I don't know the word, but she has to be thoughtful about it. You can't just be like in any situation like fuck it, I'm gonna turn to Monster Girl.
Yeah, she
kind of does in the following episode, but still
I will also say we've seen this before with people whose powers are slowly killing them, and this is way more like sad.
Yep,
because she's like not dying, she's actually getting more full of life, like she's getting younger, but life itself is more distant from her the younger she gets. So it's like really sad.
Yep.
The dope thing
exactly. To be controversial for 1 minute, just 1 minute. I'm going to ask a question here.
You can't say
no. The answer is fucking no, dude.
No.
Yeah, he already knew.
She's still 12.
R. Kelly, no.
Still 12. She can be 26 all she wants to.
Okay, but what? Okay, but what if she announced?
Is Matt Gates over here? No.
All right.
Well, I think that Rex also shows interest, so we also have another reason to not like Rex. Yep. It very subtly shows the deplorability of his actual character, because he is trying to justify in his mind. What I like about Monster Girl is that in my mind, she ends up being a blend of the Hulk and Shazam. Like when you think about it, like Billy Batson's a kid. Billy Batson's a child, but he turns into this like, big ass person. He turns into like a person who presents as an adult, a super adult. Can he have relationships? You know? Like,
Yep. Yeah, I'd love to look like yeah, exactly. Read a comic book or a spinoff of Monster Girl, just to see what they could do with that character. Because it's to be such a fucking grand and like selfless hero. She has to go through this pretty big tragedy, right? Like she'll never live a full life. She's literally giving up her life to save others, like very literally, like.
Except
So
for
it's
she
like
can go
that's
on vacation.
it's
She can go on
very
vacation
fascinating,
for
that
the
character, that dynamic of her. Like it's just fascinating. I want to see more of it.
Before we move
Broad
on to
spike.
Monster Girl, I kind of want to still go into the tryouts. Speaking of homages, Strutter, very Legion of Superheroes tryout, like the whole damn scene, like all them fighting and everything. And remember that Rexplode got his ass kicked by Monster Girl before he was turned on by her. He charged up his own teeth that fell out of his mouth and threw them at her. Like,
which brings me to my conclusion here. Which you said that robot was deplorable. Rexplode is deplorable in that own right. Secondly, I will say this, Strata, I think you should replace, as far as the homages, not so much as Shazam, but she gives me that Prime vibe. If you're familiar with Prime from Malibu comic books, Kevin Green.
Yeah. I feel you on that. That's good call.
Humble flex.
When Rex charges up his teeth and throws them, and I'm like, that's why I don't like you. You're Gambit.
Yeah, exactly. Another asshole.
Even still, like the explosions are kind of wild.
Which makes you wonder, like,
which is
how
why
shitty are these
his
fucking
power is kind of trash. It's not that.
I don't know. I've always thought the power to turn any inanimate object like into a fucking
It's gotta
explosion
be a
was kind of
bigger
cool.
explosion. His explosion.
No, there's that. It should be a bigger explosion.
So, speaking about Monster Girl and relationship issues, from here we go to Amber coming over for the first time to hang out with Mark after she gets slightly jealous about
I don't like
Adam
her.
Eve. And
I don't. It's something about her that just rubs me the wrong way. I haven't figured out what it is yet.
Did you know that her voice is Zazie Beetz? I didn't know that.
Yes.
Yes.
It
I didn't know
is.
that until the fifth episode.
I knew that because I
Amazon
that
because you taught me. I wanted to figure it out, like Strutter said. I want to figure out voices myself, and I just hit pause so I can go to the restroom. I'm like, fuck. I didn't want to know who it was yet. Like
I know her voice. Not even just from being Domino and Deadpool too, but like Atlanta. Just have you ever watched the show Atlanta?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I would also like to bring to attention this scene. No one has brought up. You're talking about relationship potential, and no one's brought up Seance Dog. The Dr. Strange dog, master of the mystic arts, and you see the comic book, and she comes in his room, and they had to throw the dirty tissues out of the room. Like, you want to talk about high school? That's high school right there. But
I mean,
he's a comic book guy, man, and he's like unapologetically a comic book guy, and even recommends things for her to read. And then, I mean, that's why I think the importance of the scene is you get the Clark disappearing to be Superman and coming back, which we've seen 100 times, but we've never seen someone's father say, "Oh, you're doing that? Congrats, you're on your way."
That was funny.
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say earlier.
Funny.
That's what I was going to say earlier is that, like, I do love that they're already starting to touch on the whole Peter Parker balancing act thing, Like, we see it later on, too, that it gets kind of, like, more out of control. But, yeah, I love that. Like, that was one of the things that made, like, Peter so relatable as a character. Like, he was always broke. He was always juggling his time and dealing with shit he wanted to do and what he had to do. Right, and I love that they're kind of bringing that into this character as well.
Dude couldn't pay his rent on time. All right, that was like, how you gonna be Spider-Man?
That's me, dog. I'm Spider-Man. I can't pay.
I had a couple problems with that too. Well, you gotta pay the late fee. I can relate to that as well. So we all can relate to that.
I see Spider-Man at Nick's check cashing, homie, over on Crenshaw, dude.
PLS. PLS. Hey, Greg, let me ask you this. Hey, so that was a father-son thing up in there. How did that make you feel? Where he was telling his son
He
like,
basically
"Hey,
gave
you
his
going
son
after the girl?"
he basically
Like,
gave his son a bros before hoes speech.
yeah, yeah.
And it was and that's the way he is. He's always been he's about this job. He's about this business. The mom Debbie, she was like, "Hey, are you pushing him too hard?" And he was like, "No." You know what I'm saying? It's like
Trying to get him ready for that
business.
conquest.
I think it's also pretty cool how we see Cecil is just wherever he wants to be, whenever he wants to be, and he's I don't know, it's like a Nick Fury amalgamation with a bunch of other like government types, except instead of like projecting some kind of hologram image or something, he's literally there, and he just knows. He's like she hasn't even flushed yet. You know what I mean? Like he knows he's that omniscient about what's going on in that house more than him, and he lives there. You know what I mean? Like just to show the awareness of Cecil and how embedded he is in everything that's going on. And you kind of see that as things go along, how he might say, yeah, that's cool, but he's always kind of supposing something's going on behind the scenes.
Oh my gosh, I know you guys know who this is, and I can't think of his name. Darkseid's homeboy, who is like his master of torture.
Assad?
Desaad. So Cecil
I didn't
kind
know I
of
was muted. Yeah, Desaad.
Desaad.
Cecil. I know who Cecil
Cecil,
is.
Cecil,
I know who
Cecil.
Cecil is.
He kind of reminds me of that a little bit, right? Like I don't know. I feel like his suit should have like a hoodie on it. You know what I mean?
Do you
I
remember?
get that. I get that vibe from him.
Do you remember in
Cecil got
DC
that
New
whole.
Frontier, they really they put King Faraday from DC up front, and he gives me a King Faraday
Yeah.
vibe of
Yeah.
being connected and pulling the strings, but like never being up front.
Agree.
The opposite of Max Lord, right? Like
Cecil has this whole Nick Fury, Amanda Waller thing. I mean, we know Nick Fury's not as extreme as Amanda Waller is, but Cecil was like, I'm watching you, but at the same time, I'm gonna make moves too if I have to protect the homeland security of this country. So he's got like a mixture of it. He's a little Nick there and a little Amanda there. So I'll say that.
So after this and he flies off to Mount Rushmore, we are introduced to my personal favorite character, Doc Seismic. I had two friends text me and say, "Hey, is this you?" Like, I guess the bald head. I'm old as fuck too, I guess. But
Wait, why do you like Doc Seismic?
I love Doc Seismic. The fact that he uses his powers and gets a concussion every time he uses them, and he still uses them so haphazardly. Amazing.
He's so fucking stupid, dude. I love it.
For the audience out there,
So
if you don't
goofy.
know,
I love a
this fool
goofy character like that. His
Ed is
costume,
passed out
everything.
in the most places I think of anybody. He's got like a Guinness World Record.
Don't take that shot.
Oh,
You're
that
gonna
is
pass
true.
out.
I mean, yeah.
And then the whole banter thing back and forth was pretty funny too. I just like that. That scene is very for something that's very character driven, drama driven. A lot of like subtleties with characters and a lot of background and stuff you're learning about this world. All of a sudden, you just get a break real quick. Like nothing that happens in that scene means anything. It's just fun as fuck in the middle of like all this drama. And it was, I don't know, I've watched that scene multiple times, more than I've watched the episodes, and it's just, it's just fun.
I think that's a great word. It ends up being fun as opposed to the rest of the series. And again, like this is homages in the way kind of The Mandalorian had homages to different movie types. This is homages to different comic types. And like this is very Teen Titans, like like he's a silly villain who's like having fun, and like it switches from this drama to panels. Like it goes to a comic book. Doc Seismic, you just want him to not win, but you want him to get as far as he can. It's so dope. He's a great character.
Because you want to hear what
what got me, Ed. You know what got me about that character? Here's the thing about it. He was talking with Eve, and he was telling her like, "Hey, you know what? That costume you wear, that's so that's so like kind of gender neutral or something like that." And she was like, "What would you know about that?" Hey, well, you know what? I did major in women's studies and stuff
Oh,
like that.
that's right.
Wow, whoa, that got me right there. I'm like, really? You that philosophical, brother?
Yeah, man,
Okay.
fucking Doc Seismic is woke as fuck too, bro.
Hey, man, he could have been a professor. He's had a lot of connections by now.
That had me rolling right
man.
there. Okay.
It's funny because the
Yeah,
thing
and I
is that
remember when they said that.
Cecil ends up making the comment where he's like, well, he's an actual doctor. And so, on the path of getting your doctorate, like he's like, yeah, so I minored in women's studies. I minored in philosophy. I minored in he ends up rattling off all of these very depth character things, which again is so funny because we're in a very two-dimensional comic panel scene right now. That is, I also think I highlighted with Invincible using the one-liners. So again, we're just like super in comic book world where he's like, maybe there's just not a good one-liner.
Yeah, I mean, and then I guess besides just being like a nice break, it also serves to kind of show the growth between Adam Eve, and she's starting to obviously kind of fall for Mark Invincible. And then the next scene is Rexplode going out of character. Well, not really, because that was the worst apology I've ever seen in my life. But he was trying to like make amends, and obviously she's done with him. And then she flies back, and it's not.
That's when I realized. That's when I realized the other reason why I don't like Rexplode, because he's Jubilee.
Oh yeah, for sure. Boom, boom.
I wasn't gonna say it when I was talking about his powers being weak. I was gonna call it I was gonna call it Sparkle Fingers, but I was like, you know what? I've already said what I had to say.
That was a good one. That was a good one.
I also know we haven't talked about the music on this much. That breakout scene with the twins, Run the Jewels. I think De La was on an earlier episode. I don't know if we talked about it. But
it has
De La's on there. Like
the Mahler twins.
It's dope because the one Mahler twin, he's like, "Hey, sorry, Peter." The guy's head is like, he's just like flipping the hand around, just all broken. And just their dynamic of going back and forth. He's like, "Well, you got to say it though. You got to say it." Like that's just that very brother. Like, come on, here's a movie. Say uncle. So they really just get that feeling apart. But when they get outside, and the way they talk is, it appears we have a benefactor. It's all dope. But he's like, I figured you'd figure it out, being that you're you're the original. And he just grabs him and just uses him as a meat shield. And you're just like, oh, like this, they get you back to the rawness. So opposed
at the
to
wedding.
the Rushmore scene, they get you to like, he's still breathing and his organs are still like pumping as he's just eviscerated and just split open after being torn apart by the plasma gun. It's like, oh man, like they go so far so fast.
There's nothing else after that, right? Is the post-credit scene?
No, I think
so like the last scene is Cecil and Robot talking. It's
Yeah.
Cecil and Robot, and then you get Debbie and Darkblood talking. And then it's just kind of like alluding to what the next episode might be about, and suspicions arise, and that's where we end it.
This is Boba Fresh from San Francisco. Hope you enjoyed us rambling on about this. I'm really enjoying Invincible and enjoying talking about it with these guys. Peace.
Editor San Antonio signing out. Listen to us, and maybe you'll learn something and want to watch it again. Peace.
This is Reverse Ramble. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Bachelor Invincible Edition.
This is Jay from LA, California. And yeah, I'm all for that Bachelor conversation. I'm good, but yeah, it's me signing out. Peace.
Gragas, aka Bruticus from West Hills, California. Rexplode is dope. Omni-Man is dope. Omni-Man is dope. FT dub to anybody who can't get with it. That's just the way it is.